Guys, start clapping. Make some noise. Louder than that.
Welcome, Dan. Thank you for coming to What's Going On. This podcast has been on and off for many years, but it's starting. You know, I said 2024. Let's get serious about this. So thank you for coming all the way here.
Oh, sure, wouldn't miss it. And it's easy to. It's very convenient off the N.
The N, when it's working, it's super convenient. When it's not, it's a pain in the ass.
Well, it was working, so that's good.
Beautiful. And so, Dan, you and I, we did a show in French.
That's right. Yeah.
How did you feel after doing the set in French?
I always feel great after I do a set in French because I always feel horrible beforehand. So it's like the contra. It's like the relief because I do shows in French and I get so anxious and then a few years pass and I forget how anxious I got and I say I'll do another one. And then I remember, this is why I stopped doing them in the first place. This is just so anxiety-provoking. I get anxious in English, let alone French, which is, a second language that is not, I'm not at a native level by any means. So, it's nerve-wracking.
I think the hardest thing, too, is because, in English, we get to go on stage more often. So there's that memory, that muscle memory that you don't have to worry about. Like, am I saying this right? Is this premise okay? French, there's no such thing as an open mic in French, in New York.
Okay, but beyond that, it's not my native tongue, so it doesn't. The words don't flow out of me the same way that they do in English, even beyond just the memorization aspect.
So when you're translating your material, how do you go about it?
I translate it myself. If I have a problem, I call up David Hazout, the other guy that was on the show, the tall Moroccan dude, just for the couple of questions, for some translation advice. Although he's from Morocco, so that's not necessarily good because sometimes there's slightly different phrases that they use. But so, if I had a question, I asked him. Mostly I translate it myself, but if I have a question, I'll ask a native speaker.
A native speaker, like how would you say? Because we talked about this with Carmen, which is, it's funny because when she was getting prepped when she was prepping for her comedy taping in Spanish, she did shows in New York, but there's a lot of Latinos here. So when you're saying something in Latin American Spanish, it doesn't really travel with Spanish from Spain. Yeah. So it's kind of the same problem. Like I was explaining to her, and we talked about this, but it's like you could say one thing that means literally fucking in one, like in Colombia it just means grab, but then in Mexico means you're fucking something, and then you're like, okay, well I didn't know that. Yeah. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about doing comedy in your second and your third is people appreciate that you're making an effort to, like, okay, you're not a native speaker, you're actually trying.
They appreciate it. I on the other hand am sick to my stomach with nerves, and as much as you might tell me, don't worry, they'll love it because they'll appreciate it, it still doesn't seem to help. I still get like, oh my God.
And you've performed in Montreal too, right?
I have at the Bordel Club, and I was nervous there, but they're great. That's a great club for any French speakers that might be listening. That's a great club.
It's the best club in Canada, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't even know that I've gotten that kind of response in England. I got such a good response. It just, maybe because comedy's sort of newer in the French world and they appreciate it, but it really was good. They just exploded at every joke.
They're particularly good. The first time I ever tried to do comedy in French was an open mic at Le Bordel. And sweating, anxiety, I was just a mess, and the open mics are sold out. Mm-hmm. An open mic is sold out, 20 comics, 10 p.m. on a Monday, and there is 100 people waiting to watch comedy.
Sandy, maybe we should open up a club in Montreal just as a business, because there might be, like, the market, there might be room for another club.
Started happening.
I'm sure they're doing it.
Yeah, like they were the first ones. There was like 4 comics that got together. Mike Ward and the other 3 that I don't remember the names right now. They're escaping me. But they were like, there was no comedy club. So they were just like, let's just start a comedy club. Because all these famous comedians in French, they didn't do open mics. They just got famous, and then they were just doing monologues.
Right.
Which is crazy. Because
because comedy in French, at least at first, wasn't like it is in English. It was more like a one-man show, more like a play. And plays don't do open. It's not like you have an open mic for your new play. You just write the play and you do it.
Yeah.
And so that was their, I think, the model that they used.
Yeah.
They just wrote the whole thing and then they did it, just like you would do with a play. But that's not how comedians work in the English-speaking world.
Not at all.
So I guess they adopted that, the English-speaking model, which is, just working out jokes 10, 15 minutes at a time.
That's right. By the way, one of the highlights of the show that we did in French is when you translated, which I mean, this joke is one of the most talked about jokes, is one of your jokes, and it's hilarious in English.
The Louis C.K. You mentioned the joke, yeah.
Yeah, Louis mentioned
the sex ed joke.
the sex ed joke.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you were going to do it in French, and you did it.
And it didn't work. And I don't know if the translation was bad or maybe they don't have sex ed. It's a joke about my sex ed teacher saying, I'm going to teach you kids how to put on a condom. That's why I have this banana with me, because I can't get hard on an empty stomach. So, I don't know. Maybe I was either didn't translate it right, didn't pronounce the words that correctly, or that just they don't have sex ed, or
It was but that was the first time you tried it, right? That was the first time you tried it in French?
It was the first time I tried it in French.
Yeah.
But most of the other jokes worked.
Oh, yeah.
That joke didn't work so much, and I don't know why. And maybe I should have asked one of the audience members why, if they didn't understand it or if they just didn't think it was funny.
Yeah. No, I thought it was hilarious because I already knew the joke,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the people, what I found distracting about the show is because I'm not a native speaker. It was back to back people that were trying really hard to speak French, which was me, and you did way better than me, and it was like, okay, they won the guy, the AZ guy that was
right,
like,
the main guy,
the main dude.
Yeah.
And so I thought there was probably a lot of in my head thinking of like, oh, they don't want to see me. Like that's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, I'm just kind of like warming them up, and I'm not even doing that good of a job. But then I rewatched the tape and it was like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought. But then you kind of like boom, warmed them up even more. And then once it got to the guy that came from France, then it was a whole different show by the time that they got up there. And it was so fascinating to see the rhythm. When you see someone that, like, for instance, he does comedy just in French, the rhythm of comedy, of stand-up, even if you don't understand what the hell they're saying, there's a rhythm.
You recognize a native speaker.
Yeah,
Certainly.
there's like the rhythm, like, oh, boom.
Yeah.
That's okay, he's pacing himself properly. He's doing this. I've seen comedy shows, like I saw a comedy show in Russian. I have no idea what they were saying. But the people that were killing, they were good.
Yeah. You could tell.
I couldn't tell you the material.
Yeah.
So then you went to Columbia, you said, right?
I went to where?
Columbia.
Nope. I went to UPenn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, but you went to the country.
Oh, the country Columbia.
Yeah.
I thought you meant college.
I
Okay.
didn't
All right,
call it.
I went to right. We were talking about right before. I was in you know what? I was doing a cruise ship at the time, performing on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
And they flew me to the cruise ship. I guess left. I don't know where it started or where it ended. They just flew me in to do a couple of days on the ship. So I flew to Columbia, and then the next day I met the cruise ship at the port. They flew me to Cartagena. It took a whole day to get there because like the cruise company didn't want to, they're trying to get me there the cheapest way possible. So I don't know if you can go direct from New York to Columbia, but I didn't. I went to Miami. I assume you can't. I went to Miami. Probably JetBlue goes direct. They go everywhere in Latin America.
They do have a direct flight now.
I go to Miami, and then I go to Bogota, and then to Cartagena. So I doubt you can fly direct to Cartagena, although maybe JetBlue does it.
I don't think you can, no.
Yeah, so it was 2 connections, and it took the entire day to get there.
So you didn't spend much time in
No,
Bogota.
I didn't. By the time I got there, I was in Bogota just at the airport.
Yeah.
And then I go to Cartagena, and it was already dark. And then the next day I was able to see. I mean, it's a very pretty, picturesque town. It's a lot of, the architecture is very interesting, very Spanish colonial, I guess.
That's right, yeah.
Very, like, colorful. Latin America, like the houses are, like, pink and, right?
Yeah,
and they have a lot of that kind
color.
of pastel coloring.
That's right, yeah.
So, it was cool, but I didn't really get to see much of it.
Is that the only time you've been to Colombia?
That's the only time I've been to South America.